Greetings from Pintpot. Today I'm going to be talking about how to choose battles to participate in and how to choose your loadout for that battle. Now the first step is to have a good look at the map. Now if I zoom out on the map I can see all the options of where I can deploy. Now ideally what we're looking for is a battle where we have 50 to 60% population. Now the reason for this is it's a lot easier to fight against the enemy when you have numerical superiority. Therefore, as a newer player, avoiding fights where you're severely outnumbered is a good idea if you want to avoid being farmed. However, you also want to avoid fights which just become spawn room camps, as they are both boring and pretty pointless in terms of improving your gameplay. So in my experience, any battle where your side has more than say 65% of the population tend to become spawn room camps. And that seems to be that just because once you hit those 2-to-1 odds, you just can overwhelm the enemy, muscle them down with overwhelming numbers. So looking at the map, I see a fight which is of roughly 50-50 population. The NC are actually slightly outnumbered, so for newer players it might be better to choose a slightly easier fight. Now once you've chosen which battle to participate in, it's imperative that you come up with a rough plan of what you're trying to achieve. Before you rush out of a spawn room, just take a moment to look at the map and quickly assess what is happening. Now I can see from the mini-map that the enemy have armor inside my base, and they also control the control point. The armor is also among buildings, which provides good cover. Now when it comes to choosing what class to play, these are the things you need to consider. Is respawning going to be a problem? And the answer is not in this case, as the spawn room is very near the A point and the enemy armor. Therefore a medic doesn't seem to be the ideal class. There don't seem to be a vast amount of maxes around, so I probably don't need to be an engineer. Light assault is a possibility, but the enemy have air superiority, which makes standing around outside on the roofs of buildings that much more dangerous. So whilst what I would like to do is to get on top of buildings and C4 their tanks, it's probably not going to work. Now an infiltrator will be fine, the only problem being infiltrators cannot help me against the armor. So the choice I've chosen is a heavy assault with a close quarters combat build, as I'm going to be inside buildings and therefore very close to the enemy. In addition, I've come up with a pretty simple plan. The enemy are at the control point. However, rather than rushing straight to the control point, what I want to do is to eject the enemy armor from the base. This is because the control point is out in the open. If the enemy army have a clear shot at it, then they can just mow down our troops trying to retake it. So the plan is simple: take out the enemy armor to make the job of the people assaulting the A point that much easier. In addition, try and cut off the enemy supply lines by killing any infantry which are trying to make their way to the A point. So the fight is effectively broken down as such. I looked at the minimap and assessed the situation. I decided that the highest priority target was the enemy armor, as it was probably destroying all our infantry trying to defend the base. I chose a suitable loadout, a close quarters combat heavy assault, who can deal with both the infantry and the armor, and ultimately died after killing one of their tanks. Now when you're playing and you look at a base fight, you should be considering the battle in very similar terms. Assess the situation and come up with a simple plan, and choose the class that best suits it. The situation has changed at the base. We've recaptured our A point, but enemy air are all over the place. Therefore, I pick up an anti-aircraft heavy assault build. After the aircraft are gone, I go back into the base and reassess the situation. I see we've pushed them outside of the base, so I choose a build which is suitable for open combat. The idea being to flank them and try and destroy their Sunderer. Now as it is, I misjudge the situation, as because of those rocks in front of me, I'm not engaging them at long distance, but at much closer quarters. Therefore my build isn't ideal. However, as I'm already at the front, I will attempt to assist my side until such time as I die. But as I'm fighting them, I realise, looking at the minimap, that we're heavily encircled by the enemy. Effectively, we don't have enough troops at the front. Therefore, at this rate, we're never going to achieve the critical mass necessary to assault the enemy Sunderer. So again, the situation has changed, and this time I'm going to choose a medic. Again, there is a simple plan behind this. Hide behind those rocks, keep on rezzing anyone who dies until we achieve a critical mass. Then when there's enough NC behind it, we can push on and attack the Sunderer. Now the enemy still outnumber us around the rocks, and therefore casualties are likely to be high. However, as my side are also assisting by bringing medics, we can slowly build up a sufficient force to push back the enemy. Therefore, the plan remains the same. Stick as a medic and keep everyone up as much as possible. You can monitor the situation by keeping one eye on the minimap, as you can see there's this slow build up of troops around me, even though the enemy is still shooting from above and inflicting heavy casualties. However, whilst before, where all the soldiers who died had to run back from the spawn room, this time it's a lot easier to reinforce it as they keep on getting rezzed. Also, because we're behind the cover of the rocks, their tanks can't really assist them in taking us down. However, we still have the problem of how to actually assault the Sundra even when we have enough troops built up. Now, none of this is to say there's only one way of achieving our goal in these circumstances. One of the great beauties of Planetside 2 is, being a combined arms game, there are all sorts of potential solutions you can use to solve this particular problem. You can decide to pull armour from a neighbouring base, pick up an infiltrator and start trying to pick them off on the other side of this rock from a higher position. Grab an engineer with a turret and try and take out their remaining tanks. But the key thing to remember is, regardless of what your plan is, always have a plan. This is because if you simply deploy somewhere and then charge out of a spawn room without really assessing the situation, then your chances of being farmed by the enemy are that much greater. You wouldn't have had time to assess the threats out there. You won't necessarily have the right class. You might not have a loadout even if you do have the right class. All of these things mean that you become progressively more susceptible to being killed by the enemy without actually achieving anything. It also means that you're much more liable to come across threats which you really are not equipped to deal with, such as tanks and aircraft. Therefore, when you respawn, always take the opportunity to assess the situation quickly on the map. The battles can be incredibly fluid, and if other players are thinking on your feet, they'll put opportunities in your way which you can take advantage of. Such as this guy who put down a Sundra in a flanking position of the enemy. Now, one thing I think that newer players to Planetside 2 struggle sometimes to get used to is the fact that you as an individual cannot change by yourself the flow of a battle. But by making good decisions, assessing the situation and assisting your side, you can, piece by piece, assist your side in winning. Therefore, you don't need to be the player mopping up entire armies of enemies. You don't need to be running around with a kill to death ratio of 5 or 10. You don't need super MLG skills to genuinely contribute to the flow of a battle. What you need is a good plan to assist your side and good decision making in terms of how to best execute it. And then with practice in the game, your execution of that plan will steadily improve. So in conclusion, use your map, assess the situation, come up with a plan and choose the class which is best suited to executing that plan. Zerging will get you farmed, but good decision making will get you kills. Now in my next episode I'll be considering choice of a loadout. In the meantime, have a good one, happy hunting, and Pintpot out.